Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Fumble Live. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have a lot to get into. It was a busy weekend, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the Fumble, tap the bell for notifications, and of course, give this video a thumbs up. And also, you should definitely send this link to some of your friends so that they can tune in and chime in the chat. All right, I'm Devin Howard. You can find me on Instagram as @DevinHoward.
It's your boy Chris. You can find me everywhere at CK2K.
I'm Jackie Ray. You can follow me everywhere at JRay the Fanatic.
And it's your girl, Britt Johnson. You can follow me on all social media at I am Britt Johnson.
All right. Hello, my friends. So we had 2 new episodes of The Last Dance last night. I know we all tuned in. So were there any favorite moments? Britt, was there anything that stood out to you about the episodes that aired last night?
Nothing that crazy stood out that we're not already going to talk about in the show. I thought the episodes were good. They just keep getting better and better. At the very beginning of the first episode last night, I definitely cried the first 5 minutes for Kobe Bryant. And I'm kind of glad that the whole episode didn't end up being a Kobe thing, because I was like, great, I'm about to cry for the next hour. So it was good that it was just like that 5-minute little tribute to Kobe, but definitely shed a few tears during that part.
Yeah, it was very bittersweet, very powerful. Chris, was there anything in the episodes last night that came as a surprise to you, or anything that you particularly enjoyed hearing about or seeing?
Surprises, no, but of course I enjoyed the 5 minutes of fame that my Knicks got. You know, that the '93 team is one of my favorite Knicks teams. Today me and Jackie talked about it in that video that we did yesterday. But yeah, I love that moment, even though I know after that 2-0 lead, it didn't get any better from there. But it was dope to hear what MG had to say about, you know, playing Madison Square Garden and all that fun stuff behind the scenes with that series.
Yeah, neat. Okay, and Jackie, I want to ask you the same question. Tell me what you thought about last night's episodes.
I mean, I loved it. I've been a huge fan of this soundtrack that they have in these episodes and the music that they played when they do these montages. I don't know who did y'all music, but y'all are killing it. Good job. I definitely was one of those people. I actually told Chris, because I stepped away for half a second and I missed the Kobe thing. So I had to go back and rewatch it. And I was like, damn, I really wish I had watched this at the beginning, because now I have to be all teary-eyed before we did our, take on the whole thing. I was like, this was the wrong way to do this. But I thought it was amazingly done, for sure.
Oh, and I did want to add one thing I forgot about. The whole part about how kind of Jordan came to Nike and didn't want to go to Nike, it totally made me think of the Ball family and Big Baller Brand.
See?
Chris said the same thing.
That's exactly what I said too. Okay, see, I'm not alone. Yep. That's exactly what I thought about too.
I love it, you guys. All right, I'm going to jump into our first need-to-know news story. It's all about an NBA team that may be relocating to Las Vegas. So obviously we know that the Raiders are gearing up to play their first season in Vegas, and now an NBA team could be following in their footsteps. Shaq actually revealed that he's heard through the grapevine that a couple of NBA teams could be for sale soon, and one will potentially head to Las Vegas. He didn't say which teams are going to be for sale, but he just said that some are. And one thing that I wanted to note is it's not going to be a huge change for an NBA team, because they already host the Summer League there. But we've been hearing a lot about Vegas and how it relates to the NBA. Obviously, we know that they're considering resuming the season at a casino or a hotel like the MGM in Las Vegas. So lots of NBA news happening there. Britt, I want to know if you have any idea which team could be making their way to Vegas. Is there anyone that you would put money on?
If I had to put money on it, and that was a good little thing because we're talking about Vegas. I like the little question there, Devin. But I definitely would put my money on Sacramento Kings. I already said this before when we were talking about it. So I think it would be Sacramento Kings. I think it's the most logical choice because they don't have a huge fan base there, and they've struggled for years and years. They've tried to kind of keep stuff together. They, could use a new arena at some point. And Sacramento Kings just seems the most logical thing. And then obviously if we were talking about, the NBA bringing in another team, then it would make sense to have Sacramento Kings go to Vegas and then possibly a team start up back in Seattle again. So like a whole new team that's just added to the list. So I think that would be pretty cool to see. But yeah, I only think Sacramento Kings would move. That makes sense to me.
It's funny because when I first heard this news story, I felt the same way. The poor Kings, they could use a change of scenery, I think. Chris, how would you feel if it was the Knicks heading to Las Vegas?
Next question. Stop. There's no way, shape, I don't care. Knicks could be 0-82. They still gonna sell out all 41 of those games. Knicks are not going to Vegas. I mean, I would be pissed, even though it would be closer to me because I can go to the games regularly. I still would be pissed because no, the Knicks stay in New York. It's not happening. Don't do that to me, Devin.
Okay, but I'm the moderator, so you got to answer all my questions.
Bully.
Exercising my power here. Would it shake your fandom at all, or would you still be just as diehard a Knicks fan?
Oh man, it would definitely shake my fandom. I would still be diehard, unfortunately. God, that's such a loaded question. I can tell you, I'm not gonna be like, well, it's time for Brooklyn now. I can tell you that will not be the case. I would still stay with the Knicks, but I would be a scorned Knicks fan for at least a few years and watch the Knicks be good moving to Las Vegas, and I would still be pissed. I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I'd rather suck in New York. I don't know, man. That's such a loaded question. I feel. Fortunately, I don't think that's something I would have to worry about. But man, I don't know how I would feel. That'd be interesting.
A move would scorn you, but these years and years of
isn't that crazy?
Hot mess doesn't.
Isn't that crazy, right? Isn't that insane? I know. Like I said, Knicks fans be stupid, man. I don't know what to tell you.
That's a good point, Jackie.
I'm well aware of what I'm saying, and I hate it.
Is there any Jackie that you think would head to Vegas, or a team that you could see fitting in well there, or that would actually be for sale and make that move?
So I agree with Britt. I think the Kings are a good look. My concern is always how Vegas isn't a sports town, right? So it's a gambling place. Now I get it that it's probably going to increase their tourism because a lot of us would go. Like I would go to see my team there. It'd be an excuse, especially since it's so close. But it's. But at the same time, I said the same thing. I worried about LA. Having the Chargers come down here. I said it's not really a sports town because there's so many other things to do here. The Rams, the Chargers still seem to be kind of suffering from that, but the Rams are doing great, so I don't know. I don't know if Vegas is the best place, but there's not no matter who my team is, if they went to Vegas, I'd be fine with it. It's just an excuse to travel.
And go to Vegas.
Jackie, let's not forget. Jackie, let's not forget the Jerry Tarkanian days with UNLV. Like they made that city a basketball city at that time. So I think it's more so depending on if you're good or not, because obviously people like to gamble and all that kind of stuff. So if the Kings came there and they were like a lackluster team at that point, then obviously people are going to be excited. But if we're talking about Tarkanian with UNLV and how killer that was during that time, like that's literally why like people started like doing like sports betting and stuff like that so much because of that, so I think it kind of just depends on how the team goes around the city. That's why I think the Raiders were perfect to go there, because the Raiders are like an infamous team. Like people hate them. Right. They have all these issues, and it's the devil of the NFL. And I think if the Kings kind of wanted to turn into, and like Vegas Kings, that just sounds great anyway. But like if they wanted to turn into,
it really does.
It does sound really good.
It really does.
We Kings in Vegas, baby. Like you can spend that however you want.
And they got damn near every other sport in Vegas already. You know what I'm saying? Besides probably baseball, because they already have basketball because they got the
change their logo to look more like a card, like a king, in a card.
Like,
come on, like let's do it. I'll be a part of their PR team.
You'd actually be a great fit. I'm sure you'd have a ton of good ideas, because that one alone was awesome. That would fit in really well. Let's jump into our next news update for you guys. So former Cowboys receiver Dez Bryant criticized the Dallas team after news broke that they were bringing in Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton. He was annoyed that Dalton was given a contract before Dak was, so Dak's been struggling to kind of work out that acceptable long-term deal from the Cowboys. So Dez tweeted, "Nothing against Andy Dalton because I think he's a great player, but the Cowboys are extremely out of line. Pay Dak. I watched the Cowboys pay Tony twice, once without winning a rec. I guess the Cowboys viewing the QB position a plug-in piece because of the dominant offense." And then he ended up receiving a ton of backlash for that, and then a reporter insisted that Dalton's deal wasn't a threat to Dak at all. He kind of apologized, but didn't take back anything that he said and then tried to change the subject. So, Britt, I know you're a Cowboys fan. Are you with Dez, or is he making a big deal out of something that shouldn't impact Dak?
Okay, so can we just all bow down to Jerry Jones right now, because his offseason is killer right now, and we all thought that it was going to be negative when they had to franchise tag Dak for that $31 million, but it's literally going in his favor because now he has all the ammunition to make Dak and his agent sign a contract for a long-term deal based off of what Jerry Jones wants. Like, this was the best decision. And then Andy Dalton literally was supposed to make $17.7 million this season before he got cut from the Bengals, and now he's all the way down to $3 million. You're getting a guy that was a 3-time Pro Bowler, took the Bengals to a playoff game 4 seasons, and you're getting him for $3 million as a backup. And this is literally perfect for you, because if Dak wants to hold out, then you're put into a position where, oh, well, you actually can't hold out now because we'll just have Andy Dalton come in here. Yes, Andy Dalton had his worst season of his career last year. His QBR went down like 10%. It went from like 89 point whatever to like 78. So he did not have a great season last year, but it's still Andy Dalton. He's still a decent quarterback compared to what the Cowboys would have had if Dak would have decided to sit out any particular point of the season in order to be on a holdout until he gets a deal. Now he has nothing, like Dak has nothing to go off, and he doesn't actually get for sure the franchise tag until July 15th. So at this point, Jerry Jones could actually renege on this whole thing and say, well, if you don't want to come to terms with me, then we're just going to take away that $31 million that you would get for a franchise tag this season too. So Jerry Jones is an absolute genius for this. Obviously, it sucks for Dak, but this is a game. This is how you play it, and Jerry played it very well. Dak should have signed several other contracts before. I talked about it. A lot of other people talked about it because he was offered, I think, up to $35 million a season, and he didn't want to take it. So at this point, like, Dak kind of screwed himself in this situation because we all forgot about that old school Herschel Walker, Jerry Jones that did that deal.
Right.
He did magic this season, and he literally proved to all of us, this man still knows how to run a team, because he literally has had the perfect offseason and set everything else up in his favor. Hopefully Dak now understands that Jerry isn't playing games and he just signs a deal, and hopefully it's a decent deal. I don't think Jerry's going to go back and be like, oh, well, now we're only going to give you $29 million or something like that. I think he'll still assign him to a good deal, but he kind of he wants to lock down Dak. He wants Dak to be the guy, and I think if anything, this proves it, because he's like, listen, I'm trying to put pressure on you to sign this because I do want you to be our quarterback. I'm not paying you $40 million a year, but I will pay you $35. So I think Dak should just sign the deal. And this was beautifully done by Jerry Jones, unfortunately for Dak.
All right, so you disagree with Dez then. Jackie, do you think that Andy's deal is a threat to Dak, or are you with Britt here?
I mean, I think anytime somebody's moving forward and you're stagnant, it's a threat, So unfortunately, I do 100% agree with Britt. I think that I was the one that said over and over that not signing him, letting him play out that year and not signing him then was disrespectful, which I still believe that. But at the same time, this is a business. And now from a business perspective, Jerry has the upper hand, so, and because you've allowed that, because you begged and begged and begged for this long-term contract, and then the Cowboys were like, nah, and then they finally were like, okay, and now you started feeling yourself a little bit, and you were like, you know what, I don't think so, and then the Cowboys were like, okay, well, You feel that while we feel Andy Dalton. And now you're in this position where you better sign like now by the end of this show. Otherwise, you're putting yourself in a position. And I think you need to, I think especially for Dak, while I love Dak, I think this to me is the definition of starting to believe your own hype, because while I think Dak is cool, I don't think he's great. And I don't think that other teams would be really checking for him like that. So I think that what he needs to do is, if you're watching this right now, Dak, turn this off, go get you a pen and virtually sign whatever they gave you, because I think it's about that time.
He definitely is watching. Let's just get that straight. To our third news story, all about Michael Jordan.
I was like, we're talking about Michael?
No, we're not.
I was here for it.
I was too. I was like, I got a glitter glove. Let me run and get it.
I saw, because my notes say MJ, and then I was just, for whatever reason, my mind went to Michael Jackson. Anyway, so as we saw in the episodes last night, Michael Jordan felt a lot of pressure when the whole world was trying to be like Mike. In fact, he said that all of that hype and all of that attention was no fun. In the documentary, he said, quote, "This is not one of those lifestyles that you envy." He knew it was time to retire in 1998, and he said he really had no reservations about getting out of that lifestyle that he was living. He was obviously idolized for everything that he did for the Bulls, for his skills on the court, but then he received negative attention for gambling. We saw a little bit of the political drama because he didn't want to back a specific candidate. We're going to be talking about that, I think, later in the show a bit. So he was kind of receiving both ends. He was having people just fawning over him, adoring him, loving him, and then also people criticizing him. And then he announced his second retirement from the NBA following the 1998 finals. He came back to play with the Wizards from 2001 to 2003 before retiring for good. So, Chris, what do you think about Michael Jordan talking about how much pressure he had? Do you think that he really was under that much pressure? Was some of it self-inflicted? Where do you stand on all of that?
Oh, no, for sure. I feel like he was being very honest and very truthful about the whole situation. I mean, a lot of people like to probably, that are in that spotlight, they like to, shade past it or not think about it or not talk about it. But MJ was being straight up about it. He was very upfront for the entire documentary so far. It's like, his focus was hoops and, getting himself along financially, stuff like that. And of course, the rest of it comes with it. And I don't think Michael's saying that, he doesn't expect that. It's just, he's just saying like, everybody wants to sing the like Mike and all this kind of stuff. You don't really want to be like me, in the words of MJ. So I completely agree, and I completely hear what he has to say. Unfortunately, you're in that position, and what you choose to do with it, I do have my disagreements on what he did choose to do with that spotlight. But also in that same light, I completely get where he's coming from, saying what he's saying. Like, it's not easy being me, and it's not all sunshines and butterflies to be MJ.
Right. Well, we obviously saw him reach a bit of a breaking point in the episodes last night in 1998. So, Britt, what do you think changed with his mentality and with his perspective to get him to re-enter the NBA in 2001?
I don't know. I've never been famous or had to deal with like the stuff that he does. But I think just on my point, like just being a little host or whatever of a show and having people in my comments or saying stuff to me, like I think you just get to a point where it's like you want to tune down the noise. And when you're at the top of your game, which Michael Jordan was in 98, when he did retire, he was still, a top player. He won his 6th championship that year. And then he had like literally getting like cussed out about like, or yelled to everybody about like the gambling stuff. And he's like, I'm not doing anything illegal. And I'm really like everyone said, $10,000 to him is like $10 to us, or $1 to us, actually 50 cents to us, like it's nothing to him. Like that money was nothing to him. So it's not like, yeah, he likes to gamble. Oh, well. And like, that's so, like, people always try to find stuff to make wrong with you. And it's like, everybody was acting like he was literally hiring prostitutes to come mess with him while his kids were sleeping in the next room or something. Like, that's how bad you guys made it seem that Michael Jordan was at that time. And it is a lot of pressure to handle. And we see that with every huge celebrity. Michael Jackson, this is way to throw Michael in there for you, Devin. Britney Spears, like every huge star, we see them like have this kind of like breaking point when they go from like being just a regular person to like almost overnight being this huge success and this huge star. It's hard to deal with. And he never had a moment to himself of privacy, and except for when he was literally just in his hotel room. He couldn't even go out and enjoy life. So I think being able to like step back from that is obviously his love, and the reason why he became who he was, because he loved basketball so much. And I think he got to a point in 98 where it's like, it's not even about basketball anymore. You guys keep talking about all this other stuff. So he had to step away from it. But obviously a guy that loves basketball that much is going to come back into it at some point. So that is why he came back in 2001. But like, I think his love for basketball outweighed the difference of the media and whatever, like, but he did need to take that break, I believe. And then he's still, a couple years off of his dad dying and all that kind of stuff. And his dad was the guy that they showed in the documentary yesterday. If Michael didn't want to talk to the media, his dad would go up and be like, listen, my son is this, so he didn't have that anymore. He didn't have that shoulder anymore. And I think that was like the reason why he retired the second time in the first place. And the first time, that's why he retired.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in this, there's a lot of positives, but obviously there's a lot of negatives. And then when you're dealing things, behind the scenes that are personal, I'm sure it just gets difficult overall. It's a challenging thing. Jackie, is there any athlete that you think can relate to what MJ says about living his life in the limelight?
Yeah, everybody. I think that's why you end up getting like a Marshawn Lynch, who's like, I'm just here so I won't get fined, because he's figured out a way to tune out the noise. And I think that's why we're desperate to learn more about Kawhi, because he's figured out a way to tune out the noise. And I think that there's because they've seen what's happened before. They've seen what's happened to MJ. I'm sure they've seen to some extent what's happened to LeBron and even Russell. Russell gets probably the most flack, but every time he flashes on somebody, it's warranted. He's not just out here crazy for no reason, but the way the media portrays you is different. And I think that it's a complete skill set. We hear sometimes people that they don't even have social media, and we're thinking, oh God, why don't you have social media? But then I know personally, like Britt said, I have to turn my notifications off sometimes, because I know when I get a lot of things, it's not like, oh girl, hey, how you doing? It's never that. It's something totally mean and evil. You know what I mean? So you have to learn, you have to figure out your own coping mechanisms. But like Biggie said, more money, more problems. The bigger you are, the harder the flashback is. So I think that it is something that's difficult to deal with. And I think a lot of these athletes now in our generation have it way worse, because MJ back then, he just had to deal with reporters in his face all the time. Now it would be reporters in his face all the time, Twitter, all these social media sites. It'd be exponentially worse. Amen. So I think that's why we get these guys now that are just like, I'm here so I won't get fined. But it is a problem.
I think now too, I want to add really quick that it almost is I think it's a little bit better now, because players can control their narrative a little bit more, because they have their voice on their platform now, versus before the media controlled the storyline and whatever was happening. Now I think more the players have the ball in their court, because they can literally go on their Twitter once a story is posted that's wrong and say, I didn't say that, or that's not what happened, or here's the story, or no, here's my Twitter, you guys saw this. So, we choose to post what we want to post. So obviously it ends up negatively affecting players sometimes, because they post the wrong thing that maybe they shouldn't have posted or whatever, because they're a human being like everybody else. But the positive part is they can actually control a little bit of the storyline, because they can go directly to social media as well and say their side of the story without it being edited or whatever the reporter was going to do.
Then we spin it and we say, oh, they should have said less, or, oh, here they go whining, or, oh, here, like we always, it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations, because, and their Twitters speak directly to their fan base. And, on the other side of it, you have people that are haters, that if we say something negative about a player that the majority of people don't like, we can spin it how we want. We still ultimately, as media, have the upper hand. I do think that it's great that they can kind of spin their narrative the way they want on their own social media. But regular media will always take the opportunity to be like, oh, see, they're just crying. They can't even take it's a no-win situation.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. Well, that wraps up Need to Know News, you guys. So, Chris, can you take us into social?
Yes, I could take you over to Post Up with your boy Chris, quarantine edition. Guys, you know what it is. Post Up is where we talk about all the social media nonsense going on within the sports world, and today is no different. And we're starting off with Josh Hart smash because he was a part of the Slam for the Win tournament. It was last week where it was a bunch of athletes playing the new Call of Duty Warfare. They're doing the new game mode. It was a tournament, blah, 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 blah. Y'all know what it is. But Josh Hart channeled his inner 13-year-old and after getting him beat up, dying, game over, he decided to rage quit, throw his keyboard, stomp on it while all his friends in the party laughed. And I have that video for you right here. Check it out.
No. How do you shoot me and I'm behind a wall? That makes no sense. Who was that? Who was that?
Now, as a gamer myself, I can't personally say that I have been in Josh Hart's position, but I was definitely the dude in the party. What was that? What was that laughing? I was in that. I have a homie who's the exact same way, who one day he's playing 2K with us, and then he can't play with us for another 2 weeks because he got to go ahead and get a new controller because, you know, back then it was our parents buying our controllers. So, yeah, I've been in that side, but I've never been angry and rage quit like that. And apparently, according to Alex Caruso, Josh Hart has a history of showing a bit of rage in his stream, so this wasn't anything new. It just was seen by more people because it was for Slam, and then Slam, of course, shared this because you gave them the material. But it's not that serious, Josh Hart. And by the looks of that keyboard, it was a bummy little like 1998 Windows keyboard. He got a better one somewhere else in the house, so I ain't worried about it. He'll be okay. Moving on to more people being exposed. Jimmy Butler was taking the hit for the rest of the boys that played for USA basketball back in Rio in 2016. And as you guys might or might not remember, there were reports that team went to a brothel. I mean, they quickly covered it up, saying that they meant to go to a spa, but they accidentally found themselves in the brothel and they immediately got out of there. Well, Sue Bird's not buying it, and she had Jimmy Butler on live with her on IG, and she wanted to know the truth, but Jimmy Butler got himself out of it. But here is that video.
All right, in Rio, did you guys really think it was a spa? Just kidding.
Pass.
All right, what's your favorite wine?
Taking the easy way out. Pass. Man, I'm telling you, but I think we know what the truth is. We're just gonna have to let it die down. This is what 2016, and we're still wondering, adding questions about it and whatnot. I don't know. Let it go. But at the same time, we know y'all went to the brothel, so just take it for what it is. Moving on to Teddy Bridgewater, ex-Saint. Now, I'm sure Jackie probably knows too. Us Saints fans know that Teddy Bridgewater was notorious for riding his bike. He was in love with his bike. You would see him riding into games through the tunnels of the Superdome. You see him, all kinds of IG posts. He loved his bike. He had the same bike every single time. So much to the point where they had that bike celebration that was going on, and you saw Sean Payton doing it. You saw a whole video of Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy loves his bikes. But when people saw Teddy post his recent bike trip, I call it that. It was supposed to be a workout. But this, when you are out there for 5 hours on an outdoor workout and you go damn near 75 miles, that is not a workout. That is a whole trip on a bike. This man was averaging 15 miles per hour. Dude, can we get the full map so you can see? Look at this. That's the coast of Florida. Teddy Bridgewater was out there biking. I wonder if he just got lost in a podcast or whatever, but it couldn't be a 5-hour podcast. But Teddy Bridgewater is insane. Can any of you guys ride a bike like that? I know we got some people who like to work out. Devin, can you do something like that?
Oh, yeah. This is Easy, you
Stop
guys.
it.
Put her out.
Stop it.
Liar. Liar.
I'm proud of myself when I bike. So in cycling classes, you can bike a lot of miles pretty quickly. That's one thing that I
Right.
did realize, and I'm proud of myself when I do more than 10. So 75 is very excessive.
Absolutely insane. My biggest question, though, after seeing that trail was, how the hell did he get back? Did he just 75 miles his way
Uber.
back home? Or it had to be, right?
Uber.
It had to be an Uber, but shout out to Teddy. Man, that's crazy. Go ahead, Teddy. This dude loves his bikes. Anyways, moving on to another football player that wasn't quite working out. He was out there breaking the quarantine when he was out there partying it up so I don't know where it is. I'm assuming it's Florida because, well, that's the only place I can think of. Maybe he's out here in Orange County at one of our beaches, but he was out there living it up on a boat
We are closed.
with some porn stars.
Yep. Barricaded,
You're right,
in fact.
But the thing is, this video, you're right, but this video is a little bit old, so we might have got it in beforehand. So I can't give California a pass. I don't know. It's not confirmed, but he plays for the Bears, Raekwon Smith. And look at this man wilding out here. Champagne shot. Look at him. Look at him.
That water
This
is
is a
not
whole-
California, Chris.
Yeah, nothing's clear like that. Stop it, Chris.
Crispy. Where is it?
Water.
That's Florida.
You
For
can't
sure
get
Florida.
Yeah. You can't get
probably-
hepatitis in that water. That's not California water.
It's brown.
Hey.
It is actually brown.
There's you're right. It ain't that blue. You're 100% correct. I was just
Yeah.
that was me just trying
It's
to
not blue
throw
at
some
all,
shade
it's
at those
brown.
people protesting. I'm talking about in the picture. No, that was just me throwing some shade at the protesters in this over this week. They had me so mad this weekend, so I was just trying to throw some shade at them. But yeah, you're probably right. It's definitely probably not in California. Doesn't matter though, because that boy looks like he is not ready if the season started whenever the NFL season is supposed to start, because that man's little belly was out there flying. I know it's the off season. I get it, but this dude is only 23 years old. He's in his second year, and he had a solid first season with the Bears, but I don't know. The Twitter, they are part of Jordan Brand / Nike. They're partnered with Gatorade, so throw them in the commercial, and it makes sense because the whole point of the commercial is everybody. You see kids shooting, you see adults shooting. Everybody wants to be like Mike. You throw some NBA players. I think it's perfect. Get your money. But maybe I'm just, maybe I'm too brand heavy. Jackie, I have to ask you: do you think that them adding these players into this commercial is a little bit too much pressure, or are you thinking the same thing I'm thinking? It's literally just them throwing some sponsorships into the commercial.
Yeah, I think it's just sponsorships, and I would never call it pressure. You're in the league. That's pressure.
Right.
Live up to it. This little funky commercial does not increase the pressure.
No, it doesn't.
It might increase your paycheck, your endorsement check, but it's not going to increase the stop.
Yeah, too far. But yeah, look, Zion, the first one in, and you knew that they're like, oh, there goes Zion. Now they're comparing him. Stop. Zion just out here getting this check while you're in the quarantine. Let him live, all right? Moving on. I love this. Now, I don't know if you guys were here last week, but we had some road rage going on at the beginning of the show over on Jackie's side. And I'm sorry to think that was JaVale McGee and Nick Young, because we found out that the two of them almost fought each other, not knowing that each other were who they were.
No.
Nick Young posted this tweet talking about the instance, saying, I almost killed JaVale McGee just now. What are the odds we almost hit each other driving? I'm ready to cuss someone out in full road rage mode. He rolls down his window and it's JaVale. Man, WTF. We just started laughing. Damn, I wish he would have hit me. I need some cash with a bunch of laughing emojis. I love that. I'm convinced that those were the horns that we heard last week. I don't remember exactly what show it was, but we heard some horns, and I'm convinced that that's who it was, because those horns were aggressive, and they immediately stopped because they saw each other and they were outside laughing. But yeah, Nick out here trying to get some pay. Now, this one I found pretty interesting. I think this is pretty cool. LSU. Now, we know that, defending champs, all that. They had the number 1 pick in the draft, but what's crazier than that, everybody on their offense that was draft eligible has been either drafted or picked up as an undrafted free agent, which is incredible. Field Yates posted this tweet. So I'm on spit. Dropping out the entire rundown of what happened after this year's draft. He put LSU's offense had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, became the first ever school with a QB, running back, and wide receiver drafted in the first round in the same year. He also put all 5 starting offensive linemen drafted or signed, 7 total draft picks, Every draft eligible player was drafted or signed as an undrafted free agent. Unreal. That's a huge feat. I was looking in to see who was last one to do that. Couldn't find it, but shout out to LSU. Very well deserved. They even have 2 wide receivers that are under the wing that are, they're either freshman or sophomore, but they're definitely not ready to be drafted. They're going to be next year, so they're sophomores. They're eligible to be drafted next year in 2021. That will most likely be first round picks as well. LSU out there breeding some kings out there, raise some NFL ready players, I'm just curious as to how they're going to do next year because that whole offense is now in the NFL. How's that going to work for the season? But other than that, shout out to LSU. That's actually pretty huge, pretty big deal. Also, I want to shout out to Thaddeus Moss, who no one talked about. Dude got picked up by the Redskins, unfortunately, but fortunately because he's in the league. So shout out to him. He's playing. They got him at the tight end. So I want to give him some love because I don't understand why no one was talking about that. Shout out to him. He's only the son of one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, but whatever. Shout out to him getting that pickup. And last but not least, exactly. Now, last but not least, I got a question for everybody because Shaq, unfortunately, he can't answer the question himself. I think I have an answer, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. We have another one of those choose A versus choice B. And it is a pretty crazy lineup. Now, it's basketball driven. Now, Shaq posted this on his IG. He has 2 lineups, and he couldn't choose which lineup is the best lineup. Lineup A has Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, and Hakeem Olajuwon, while lineup 2 has John Stockton, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Dirk, and Shaq. Now, it says that they're all in their prime. Shaq, he could not choose between the 2. If you leave it to me, this is a hard one because everything tells me never go against Michael Jordan and Shaq on the same team. But God, that first team is just, it's so hard because I'm thinking about the stories they were talking about in The Last Dance in the Olympics. Magic Johnson had less and they were able to, smack up Michael Jordan a little bit in their practice. So I was just like, all right, you know what? Just because of that and because of who they got, I'm going with lineup 1, I think, or lineup A, with Magic, Kobe, LeBron, Tim Duncan, and Hakeem. That's who I'm going with in this 7-game series. And we all know if this went to 7, this would be Michael's first 7-game series, and unfortunately, it would be in a loss, in my opinion. But Devin, I go to you now. You see the pictures. Who do you have winning a 7-game series between these 2 lineups? I'm starting with you, Devin. We're gonna go all the way down the list. But you first, Devin.
All right. Well, I got to stick with LeBron, but also I do think that Team A or Team 1, the top line, just as a more versatile. I think they just are more like covered together. It would be. I think that they would definitely be winning. Yeah.
Chat going with A2, but Jackie, your turn. Who you got? Team A or Team B? All right.
Team A.
Rick, who you got? You want Team A, Team B?
This is really hard for me because
isn't it?
I just take them by position and I'm like, John Stockton can't guard Magic Johnson. Exactly. But then you think oh, Shaq got Hakeem Olajuwon all the way. And then it's like, even Kobe saying like, I am the 5 championship Kobe because of Michael Jordan. So it's like, if they're both in their prime playing at the same time, who's the better player? Michael Jordan is. And I mean, even anyway, Michael Jordan's at being the better player, but then it's like, you just take them like, neck and neck. I just can't see. And then I don't know if we want to throw up the listing because Tim Duncan was going against 2.
Dirk.
Oh, against Dirk. I think Tim Duncan has that, but then I think LeBron has KD. I don't know. I can't pick, but just because I'm an MJ girl, I'll go with the second one because I think MJ and Shaq are just gonna kill it because MJ plays better defense too, and Shaq is gonna be on the defensive side of the ball. It's just but both of those teams are crazy. They're crazy. Yeah, I see why Shaq had a hard time deciding, even though he's on one of the teams.
Initially, that was me too, because other names aside, because Dirk is a great, John Stockton, all of them are great, but just seeing Michael Jordan and Shaq on the same team, my first thought was look, you can put anybody on the side. That's hard. But at the same time, Kobe's surrounded with Magic Johnson and LeBron, who are both very unselfish. So Kobe is going to have no problems being able to be Kobe compared to MJ, who's going to have KD on his team. Shaq wants the ball. So that, to me, that's why I give the little bit of the edge to Team A, because I just feel like when they need to get theirs, they're going to get theirs as far as Tim Duncan, LeBron, Hakeem, but they'll be very unselfish, and Kobe can go out there and have his one-on-one with Michael Jordan. I don't know if it would be very successful because, like you said, MJ's defense is serious, but that would be fun. Yeah, it's a toss-up. There's no winner here. It would be a good matchup for everybody if it really happened. And but that's it for me on
I need to see who each team has for their 6th man. I think that makes the difference. Who do you got?
Oh, see, yes.
That's key.
That makes the
That would
difference.
be the decider. Mm-hmm.
Facts. We have to get back
All
to
right.
that one.
We was bamboozled in this list. We need a longer list.
Right.
All right, Jackie. Now, what is the weirdest thing that happened this weekend? Take us into WTF.
Okay, let's get into WT freaking F, because it was just yesterday that Chris and I were talking about how cool it was that Charles Barkley gave MJ some props and MJ gave Charles Barkley some props. But today, Charles Barkley is getting the side eye because he's just not a fan of the new school. And I don't know how you guys are just now figuring this out, but he gave his top 5. And his top 5 are Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's no LeBron James. There's no Kobe Bryant. And people feel like he slighted them. He gave them some shade. I personally am on team Charles Barkley on this one because we're thinking about Wilt Chamberlain. Listen, Linda, listen. So when we think about Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, these are guys that he looked up to. He played with MJ. So he's just in a different mindset. Charles Barkley is one of those people who is not on social media. He does not give credit to the new school. He is all about the old school. Let that man be old and be in his head. It's fine. You got to respect your elders. Y'all are making too much out of this. But Britt, I'm going to ask you, is this a disrespectful list?
No, and I think to your point of players are going to look at like who inspired them to be great and why they were great. And I even said before, like last time when people were talking about like Michael Jordan, who he looked up to is like in Dr. J and some other guys, like I think people think that people are great that they learned their game from, and
right.
Charles Barkley at the prime he played was one of the greatest players. So like for him, he's looking at who and why he was a great basketball player. Like obviously that man ain't dribbled a basketball in a really long time with his big self, so like, you don't know nothing about these young guys and you don't care, like we always talk about him getting into it with Draymond and stuff. He ain't worried about these young kids. He's worried about who inspired him and why he loves basketball. And obviously he picked great. I mean, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul, like these guys are literally legends, but we are so far taken from them because none of us have saw them play, really. So it's like we can't really like understand what they did to basketball, but you're talking about guys that have won like 11 championships and stuff like that, like unheard of, like that's crazy. But like we're so far taken away from that we can't compare. Just like some of the even younger version or people don't understand Michael Jordan because they were born when Michael Jordan was playing, I totally get it.
Chris, I heard you disagreeing with my "Let Charles Barkley live" statement. Why?
No, I was just shocked because I'm Team Barkley too because of exactly what you said. That Barkley is just going to be Barkley, and like both of you guys said, he's picking. Those are the guys that pushed him to be who he was in the league, and those are that's his top 5, and I'm with it. Let Barkley be Barkley. I was just surprised that you were. That's why I reacted the way I reacted. That threw me off.
You think I am an unreasonable LeBron James fan? Is that what you're saying? I don't answer that. Don't answer it. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay. All right.
All right. So this one is probably one of my favorite WTF moments so far because it's kind of savage, kind of clueless at the same time. But this one is going out to, well, first of all, Nick Young and goes by Swaggy P. And we have to figure out why his name is Swaggy P. But let me go in. You learned? You know what it is?
Yeah. Can you tell me? Somebody who knows him. Yeah, it's like supposed to be like a biblical kind of version of like he's the prophet of swag. So
stop it right now.
Prophet. Yeah.
Stop it right now. I wish I didn't know. Now I don't feel good about life. This is terrible. But let you take a look at this clip really quickly before I kind of get into what was said. But this is a savage moment from Gilbert Arenas, who says that he gave Nick Young, aka Swaggy Prophet, a hard time when he was in the league because let's just see how he did it. Let's take a look at the video.
Huh? What happened when you crashed his car? You crotch his whip?
Has sex with his girls that he.
This is the ultimate city boy, bro.
Yeah, no. Anytime he tried to fall in love with the thought I had sex with her, just to let her know. That's just to let him know that's the thought. Like you can't. No.
Who? This is
all the ones in DC, Miami.
So look, let me just let you in on a clue here, fellas. You can't call a woman a thought when you out there being a hoe. Okay, but I love the energy on this, and I love that he said that this is how Nick Young is getting back at him now, making him pay full price because he would sleep with Nick's thoughts. Yeah. Chris, do you have a thought on the thought sleeping around process?
I love Gilbert Arenas. Gilbert Arenas is one of my favorite players on the court, and then his post career has been even better. Gilbert Arenas is the best. I love it. I think it's hilarious. Anything he does, I'm gonna laugh at. And you know what? There's always just a little bit of to the crazes that he spews on the internet. That is hilarious. But I mean, hey man, sometimes that. It's a lesson to take.
The chat is saying that Gilbert is not a hoe, but if you're trying to sleep with thoughts to prove that they thoughts,
you still a hoe. Yeah.
Ain't that a hoe? Maybe my definition is messed up.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why his name is No Chill Gil. I think this is so freaking funny, and he does have a point here. Like if the girl really did love Nick Young, they wouldn't go sleep with his teammate. So this is like perfect way to prove it. Like he tried the girls, and the girls that accepted it, well, yeah, that ain't the girl for you, bro. So I get.
Yeah, but if we as women tried, if I would try to prove that for you, Britt,
that's
I mean,
well, I'm not saying that he is a hoe as well. I'm just saying it is helpful to Nick Young to know if the girl's really down for him or not. And by Gilbert testing the girl, that is how he is helping that young rookie. And also he wants to, he was a rookie. Like Nick Young was a rookie when he came and joined Gilbert Arenas with the Washington Wizards. So I think it's like that. I mean, he's literally just really snatching his girls and being like, listen, Rook,
exactly.
I could take all your girls. I've been in this game. You knew here, like they're going to leave you for me. It's funny, but now looking back, he's trying to be like, well, I was trying to help him out. It doesn't work though.
So the moral of the story is, if you're gonna be a hoe, be a helpful hoe. But that's all I got.
Hoe with the lesson.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Jack. That certainly was a WTF moment. And now, your takes.
All right, guys. What's up? It's time for Britt's takes. Chris, where's
Britt's takes.
Thank you. So this one is really interesting because a couple weeks ago, we kind of talked about the shut up and dribble in a way that was like, no, players shouldn't just shut up and dribble. But if they want to, is it okay to just shut up and dribble? Now, players in the NBA have decided in more recent years to kind of stand up for things that they believe in, like LeBron James. And because he does that, he gets a lot of love from people, but he also gets hate from people because we know anytime you have an opinion about something, people are going to hate on you because of it. So in this last episode of The Last Dance, it was noted that Michael Jordan took a lot of heat from the Black community when he decided to not publicly, back somebody in an easy election. Like it was clear as day that he should rep this guy because the other guy was a racist. So you're not going to get so much hate for going for the other guy because he was a racist guy. And it obviously happened in North Carolina where he's from. So, his mom was the one that asked him to do it in the first place. So it's kind of crazy that he didn't do it. But he said, you know what? I didn't want to publicly speak about it. That's not my thing. I'm not like an advocate for anything. I just am here to play basketball. I did understand the guy and I wanted him to win. So I donated money, but I wanted to stay out of the politics. So in the documentary, it was also, he was compared to, Muhammad Ali. And it's like, oh, well, we're going to remember Muhammad Ali because he took a stand for everything. And we're probably not going to remember Michael Jordan. Well, I mean, that was a little premature because clearly everybody's going to remember Michael Jordan. At that point, we didn't know Michael Jordan was going to become the greatest ever of all time. And nobody's, gone to his level yet. So I don't think that was necessarily a clear thing to say, but it's very interesting that we even compared the Michael Jordan Muhammad Ali thing because even though Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter, one of the greatest fighters of all time, and he was amazing and stuff like that. And he also took political stands against tons of stuff. I don't think he's on the level of Michael Jordan. And just saying that, I'm saying in a pressure instance, because Muhammad Ali is a boxer. Like, what my great uncle is Jack Johnson, who was the first African American heavyweight champ of the world, and he literally, this was back in like 1908, used to date white women and had cars and, you know, literally would do all this crazy stuff all the time, and he was just out there. That's why we love boxers, because you don't have to like them. They're supposed to not be liked, you know? Like, that is the whole point of being a boxer, is you want everybody to hate you, and then you go out there and you beat somebody's ass, and it's amazing, right? Basketball's not really the same. Michael Jordan had a different thing. He was supposed to be this whole campaign of let's be like Mike, and we got to be the likable guy that just goes out there and smiles and drinks his Gatorade and plays basketball and like doesn't have any issues. Obviously, we know when he did have the gambling thing, it literally turned his life upside down. He couldn't even like almost handle the pressure from that, because his pressure that he knows how to deal with is the basketball pressure. Everything else, it seems like he isn't comfortable dealing with. And to me, that should be understood. Even the other day when me and Jackie were talking about the culture of football and why the athletes choose not to say anything. They don't feel comfortable based on their surroundings to say anything. At that time, I feel like that's how Michael dealt with it as well. So my take for today is, as much as I love MJ, I consider him, and I considered this actually to be a huge fault in him, not speaking out, because like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And I think we all kind of low-key thought that about Michael Jordan at that time. But then watching the documentary yesterday and listening to just how he kind of dealt with stuff and how he handled stuff, even with the gambling and whatever the case is, I think it's okay for athletes to not necessarily be an advocate for something. Like, I don't think they have to be an advocate for something. I think what we love about Michael Jordan, we can love about Michael Jordan. And, you know, you can have moments where you're like, I didn't really think that was a good idea to do that. I think you should have supported this person. But you can't force somebody to feel a certain way when they don't feel a certain way about something, which I think is why I appreciate LeBron James so much off the court, because he's literally doing something great and he believes in what he has convictions and he wants to speak out about them and help people out with injustices and stuff like that. And I think that's beautiful. It also gives you a lot of hate, as me and Jackie know, like, we're very opinionated about stuff. We have our thoughts. Nobody's changing our mind on what we believe. And I think that is almost like, it's beautiful to feel like that, because you know already that you're going to get a lot of hate. Like Jackie was even saying earlier, she's like, when I go to my DMs, it's not, oh, you're the most amazing person in the world and yada yada. People usually come to my DMs and Jackie's DMs to talk shit because we have opinions on stuff. So you have to deal with okay, do I want to be this face that everybody loves and nobody has anything negative to say about me because they don't even know my opinion about stuff? Or do you want to have an opinion about stuff and be okay with the negativity that you get from it? And some people can deal with that stuff and some people can't. So I think I understood Michael Jordan a little bit more listening to it yesterday. My question for you, Jackie, because you are very similar to me and we are just super opinionated women and we don't give a shit what people have to say about it. But do you think, after seeing how Michael responded yesterday and how he kind of reacts to stuff, do you think athletes need to use their platform to speak out about injustices, even if that's something they don't feel comfortable doing? Do you think because you are put in a situation where you do have a platform, you almost need to, for the greater good of the world, use it for a good thing, even though you're going to get people that might hate you because of it?
So I think that, and my answer is going to be strictly for African American athletes, because that is where I feel like the majority of the social injustices and the hate that we see about people speaking out against social injustices, I think it kind of goes in that direction. But I don't know. I think if you're looking at the Bible or if you're watching Spider-Man, the quote says, "To whom much is given, much is required." And I think that is a responsibility. I think, and my situation is different. I grew up there was only 5 Black people in my graduating class, so I am used to being in a situation where I have to represent for an entire race of people. Is that fair? Absolutely not. But did I recognize early on that if I screwed this up, I wasn't just screwing things up for me, I was screwing things up for other people as well. Of course I did. And I embraced that. On the flip side, if I had a platform that Michael Jordan had, I'm not going to say, I would either say nothing at all, or I'm not going to say something like, oh, well, Republicans wear shoes too, because that lets everyone know that you really don't give a damn about what happens to the people that look like you. Say nothing or say something is kind of where I fall on this. But I do think, especially when we look at America as a whole, I'm obviously not talking about anything outside of our country, but when we look at America as a whole, we as Black people have a long way to go. And I totally understand, especially given my background, not wanting that responsibility. I get wanting to just go out and really just play basketball. But that's not the society that we live in. People, unfortunately, look to you for guidance. They look to you because they look up to you. These kids are like, the Like Mike campaign is a real thing. What would Mike do? You know, a lot of people, there's the WWJD, but in this case, it's the WWMJD. You know what I mean? So you're in a position where your words carry so much weight. And that's why I respect people like Marshawn Lynch, who's taken the absolute opposite directive. You know, he's like, I'm not going to say anything to y'all, but I'm going to go buy the block. And we don't really hear about that unless you dig into it. I respect that because he understands the flashback that will come from that if he says things to other people. But he's even said to these young kids, you know, save your money because you don't know what's coming from it. And I just think that there's a certain responsibility when you are in this position of privilege where you have an opportunity to affect change. I just think you have a responsibility to do so. But I do understand why you wouldn't want to, if that makes sense.
Chris, I just have really quick, I know we only have a couple minutes, but I know you kind of talked to it a little bit earlier about how you obviously felt a little bit differently about how people, you know, handle, you know, their success and what they do with it. But I know we notoriously know that Michael Jordan isn't a good public speaker. He doesn't do well when talking to the media. So do you think maybe he knew that about himself and he didn't want to say the wrong thing? And obviously to the point of the Republican thing, he said that on the bus with the team. He never said that out like publicly, but somebody told and said that he said that. So do you think that maybe Michael Jordan is better to have been quiet because he doesn't actually usually say the right thing in a lot of instances when it comes to, you know, being in those big moments where you have to talk about something that's other than basketball?
Right. No, he might have. He might have, and that's why I completely agree with Jackie on it's either you say something or you don't try to dabble in it a little bit, and then because then it's going to be taken the way that it was taken because it wasn't the right comment, like the Republican shoes comment. Yeah. So I do believe that he might know that he has issues with, you know, talking in public and knowing what to say in the public eye. I feel like that was, as much as I joked about it in our review of the episode, I feel like that probably had a lot to do with the interview that he had with Ahmad Rashad, because there, you know, people were talking about him wearing the sunglasses and stuff like that. I just feel like he's just not comfortable for those kind of that's just not who he is. He especially when it's having to do with his personal life. They're not sitting there talking about basketball and stats and stuff like that. They're asking about, you know, the gambling, the personal stuff, and that's just something that's probably uncomfortable to him. It could be other things, but I think going to your question, it could have a lot to do with that. And he just probably knows that that's just not where he's suited. So I believe that could definitely be something that was probably hindering him from making more public opinions at that time.
All right, you guys, I loved hearing what all of you had to say. It was a really important conversation, and you guys had such incredible thoughts. I'm with all of you on what you were saying. But yeah, this is time for our show, you guys. So make sure you subscribe to the Fumble and tap the bell for notifications so that you can always tune in at the right time when we're going live. We're going live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there. Be square, you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Square.